So as I came home from the gym tonight, I was cooking some dinner, and when I was making dinner, I saw that one of my favorite ex Vine stars, Drew Gooden, had uploaded a new video. His video was called "Greed is Ruining Our Country." I think, whatever it is, I'll put it in the description. But it's a video that just talks about how everything is getting worse. Or maybe not how everything's getting worse. I mean, if you look at the GDP year over year, it seems to tick up. And if you look at the profits, the revenue from different companies, you can see that those are also going up year over year. But if you look at what the average Joe Schmo like you or me, our quality of life on a year to year basis, he talks about why it's getting worse. And he talks about the classics, right? How in the 50s we had a growing middle class, and how in the 60s, despite the Vietnam War, you still had a growing economy and people with who were living better lives than their parents, and children that would live better lives than them. But nowadays, it feels a lot like man, my parents had it the best, and I am never going to have it better than that. Now, whether or not that's true, I think that that's a way that a lot of people are feeling, and I can't really fault them for that. So it sort of begs the question, right? If everything is always getting worse, and if what we're doing here doesn't seem to be making our lives any better, why do we live in this country? I mean, why do we live in any country, right? And I was thinking about this. I mean, I've been thinking about this for a long time, right? But I was thinking about this as I was taking a shower, after dinner, and it came to me. We live in a country because it's better than the alternative. Like, imagine if you, Joe Schmo, you live in a cabin in the woods. You're living the peak hermit lifestyle. You go outside, you got your axe, you pick it up, you go and you chop down a few trees, you bring home some firewood. You need to go get dinner, right? So you go out, you take your gun, you go find a deer, shoot him in the head. Cool. Now you got dinner for a couple weeks. Awesome. But, you can only do as much as you, Joe Schmo, can do, like literally, with yourself. So when you live in a country, when you live in a society, it's all about the diversification of the workforce and the specialization. And so, I live in a country because I like having roads to drive on. And if I get sick, it's really nice to know that I don't have to just pray that my body can handle whatever diseases or whatever conditions come my way. I mean, shoot, the way things are going, I may have to worry about some cancer. But that's besides the point. I live in this country, I live in a society because I enjoy the benefits of not having to do everything myself. And so what does that mean for the way that everything is now, right? Where it feels like it's tough to go to the store, and it's tough to buy, a week's worth of food, and it's tough to find a new job that treats you better than your old job. What does that mean? I think that, at a very simple base level, it means that, this is still better than being Joe Schmo who lives in his cabin in Wyoming, right? But it doesn't have to be. Like, Joe Schmo's cabin is kind of, let's call that like a baseline, right? Like, it's going to either be good or it's going to be bad. It's some baseline level. Let's call it neutral even. And the way that things are now, I don't want to say that it's good, but I think it's better than baseline. Because we still have a lot of amenities that are taken care of. Like, I can go turn on the tap right now and get water. I can go to the store and buy things that I did not produce. I can use the road to get there, right? So, on some fundamental level, the society is working still. But when we look at a lot of things that are failing, right? Like how AI is replacing jobs and how the rich keep getting richer, and how roads, at least here in Michigan, are in a tough spot. These are things that need to be fixed. And so, we live in this country, right? And things are the way that they've been. And for my whole life, exempting my flat screen TV I'm looking at right now, which, 20 years ago would have been a CRT, exempting something small like that, a lot of life feels the same. Maybe gambling is a little bit more accessible than it used to be, and maybe it'll be more accessible next year than it was this year. Okay, point taken. But by and large, right? Like, the things about life that were good for living in America are what they were then, best case. So what am I getting at? Well, what I'm really trying to get at is that we live in a society because it's better than the alternative. We don't just have to be here. But as part of that, the society also can be as good as we want it to be. You don't have to live in this country where things are bad and you're watching them get worse. So be the change that you want to see, right? And I think that, touching back to Drew's video, I think that he touches on a lot of great points. Corporate tax rate is below 30%. Progressive tax rate past $10 million, they can just store their money in unrealized capital gains, which means that it can't be taxed, right? We have these vested interests and money that wants to control the way that things will go without any care or consideration for human life. And that sucks. But it doesn't have to. And so, you can say, it's my money and I don't want the government touching it. Point taken. It feels bad to watch a third of my paycheck, be taken away, right? But you also have to understand that it's better than the alternative. Joe Schmo is stuck in his cabin. He can only get as far as his 2 feet will take him. If he's got a car, well, he's got to make his own road, right? But when I live in a society, when I pay taxes towards that road and the upkeep of that road, that's the point. That's what we're here for, right? Or, at least in a societal sense. So just because things are bad now and we don't have a ton of resources for the bottom 80, 90, 95, 91, 9%, right? Like, it's just that top teensy bit. While they have concentrated all the power and the wealth right now, it doesn't have to be that way. And we can change that because we live in a society. And it's better than having to shovel through the snow in order to plow my own road, right? I can pay someone else to do that. So, if you're mad at the powerful, the elite, the people that have the power and are doing their best to take more power so that you have less, I don't think that you're going to find a ton of success by looking at people without power, right? Your illegal immigrants or your teen mothers, right? They can barely get by themselves, and in many cases they're doing jobs that you or I, Joe Schmo and I, wouldn't even want to do. So I think that a serious conversation is needed about reevaluating the way that things are and taking a real introspective look at why they are that way. Who does it benefit for them to be that way? A lot of evil in this world can be traced back to Ronald Reagan, right? But without beating a dead horse, I just think it's important to say just because it's the way that it is now doesn't mean that it has to keep being that way. And I really think it's important that we reevaluate how much we're taking away from those with so little in order to give a little bit extra to those with so much. I mean, I know that between a society that does that or no society at all, I think I might have to take the baseline. I might have to learn how to make my own Diet Coke.